Hey there, folks. All right, good to be back. First thing I wanted to talk about today is why I haven't posted very many videos here in the past several weeks. I know it's been a while. They've been few and far between. It was not intentional, I promise. What happened is, first, the computer that I do my edits on, which is the computer I'm using now, well, I upgraded it from Windows 10 to Windows 11 about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, and did not realize Windows 11 has a totally different video editing program that I've been having to relearn as I go. And I'm making progress, but it's not super simple. If you've seen the top 15 Motley Crue songs video that I posted most recently, a couple of weeks ago, that's the first one I think I've done with the new program, and it took forever because trying to put together an intro and figure out how to cut things and move them around, just a lot different. But then after I got a handle on that, as if that weren't bad enough, the other computer, the one that I actually shoot the videos on, usually, I don't know what's like the video card just went in the toilet or something. I don't know. You can't shoot video on it now. So I had to figure out a way to move that out to this computer because the other one kind of went video suicide on me. So anyway, had to transfer my stuff over here, and it's also a location in the house where this computer is that is not real conducive to privacy and shooting videos. So I've been trying to figure out how to make all that shit work. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you all for your patience, which is much appreciated. Sorry about that. Okay, so that said, I'm back. And I'm back today because I just got this from Amazon during the down period. And I thought I would show it off a little bit in case any of you guys are still trying to find it on vinyl, like I have been for decades. And I wanted to share what the experience was like for me, so you can hopefully have some idea what to expect if you decide to go down that road too. Okay, first, I've been searching for this album on Amazon and eBay and in my local record shops for about as long as I can remember. I've had it in my Amazon shopping cart for the last several years, hoping that the price might eventually come down a bit because I absolutely refuse to pay $50 to $100 or more for anything on vinyl. But the price on it never seemed to drop. So I eventually deleted it out of the cart a few years back. And then this Christmas, I got an Amazon gift card. And I thought, what do I want to use that on? Hey, wait, let's see if that W.A.S.P album is still ridiculously priced. So I searched, and guess what? It wasn't ridiculous for a change. Schwing. Yeah, I found it on there for $19.98 prime. Wow. I just looked it up again right before starting this shoot, and it is already back up to $29.98. A couple of days ago, it was 38, almost 40 bucks. So it's dropped another 10, but still 10 higher than it was. So anyway, definitely something I guess you just have to keep an eye on and then pick your moment before it's too late. A few more details of the order when I ordered the album. It didn't say so when I was ordering it, but the copy I got is the originally released track list, meaning it opens with I Want to Be Somebody instead of Animal. And it's just the original 10-song album, which is exactly what I was hoping it would be. However, Since it was Prime, and I have a Prime membership, it did come with the auto rip digital download feature. And that version that I got on and downloaded to my computer is the 98 reissue with Animal and the other 2 bonus tracks, which is also exactly what I was hoping. Another detail I couldn't have known, though, because it was not stated in the description on Amazon for some reason, was that this release is colored vinyl. Now, I like colored vinyl just fine, especially if it's a cool color. I honestly still prefer black vinyl, but hey, I'm hardly going to complain. That is until I opened this up and discovered that the vinyl is hot pink. Ew. Not crazy about that choice, but whatever. I would have preferred a nice blood red or something, maybe, which does exist. I've seen it. In fact, here it is. Or better yet, how about a really cool looking blood red and gray splatter, maybe? Wouldn't that be nice? But whatever, I guess. I'm not so turned off by the pink that I'll be sending this back anytime soon, that's for sure. Now, for those who are wondering, it sounds pretty great. I initially was a little concerned that maybe it was a little too bassy, the way this particular pressing was mixed, but that was just how I thought I was hearing it on my own turntable here at home with the volume fairly low. And when I took it to my buddy Sean's house for Metal Night last weekend, he cranked it up and it sounded absolutely fantastic. Okay, so I thought as long as I'm here talking about this, I might as well go ahead and review the album. So here we go. The W.A.S.P debut was recorded in June through July of 1984 at the record plant in Los Angeles, California, and was released on Capitol Records on August 17th, 1984, which seems like a really quick turnaround to me. The album is 38 minutes and 14 seconds in length and was produced by Blackie Lawless with help from Mike Varney. Except for 3 of the tracks, The Flame, On Your Knees, and Tormentor, which were produced just by Blackie Lawless. And I think that's worth just a bit more consideration. It's not very often a record company lets a guy produce his own band right out of the gate. I'm not sure exactly how Blackie was able to convince Capitol Records to allow him to do that, but kudos to Blackie for having the balls, and kudos to Capitol for being open to the idea, because you can say what you want about this band and this album, but I think you have to at least acknowledge that it's a really solid first effort. Things I did not know until putting together this review: the album has been known under 3 different names over the years. The spine of the original European vinyl had Winged Assassins printed on it, while early cassette releases of the album had the name of the album's first track, I Want to Be Somebody, printed in bold letters on the cover. The album is officially entitled simply W.A.S.P, which is how it's typically referred to, at least here in the States, as far as I know. And apparently, all the songs on the album were written by Blackie Lawless, with a couple of exceptions I'll mention during my comments on those particular tracks. As for the album's chart success, it peaked at number 56 in Canada, number 6 on the Finnish albums chart, number 15 on the Swedish albums chart, number 51 on the UK chart, and 74 on the US Billboard 200. The album was certified gold in the US, selling over 500,000 copies, which honestly is very hard for me to accept looking back. I knew a lot of people who owned and loved this album in 84, 85, 86, etc. And I find it really difficult to believe it didn't go platinum within those first 2 or 3 years after its release. But if you say so, I guess. It definitely should have outsold a lot of the other half-assed 1980s albums that apparently did not. But what do I know, right? Anyway, singles from the album included Animal, Fuck Like a Beast, which peaked on the UK singles chart at number 83, but more on that song in a second. Also, I Want to Be Somebody, which hit number 18 on the Finnish charts, number 30 in New Zealand, and number 77 in the UK. And School Days, which hit 14 on the Finnish charts and 81 on the UK singles charts. And then apparently Love Machine was released as a single, but only in Japan, also in 1984. Okay, so obviously none of these singles charted in the United States, at least according to the information I was able to find. And I mean, why would they? The US public has its head so far up its prude ass it wouldn't know a great song or album if it hit the country square in the face attached to a bloody slab of raw meat, now would it? All right, so let's go ahead and talk about these tracks. First thing I want to say here is, and I can only assume that most of you who are familiar with this band and this album will already know, but according to Wikipedia and pretty much every other source I've been able to find, prior to the original release of the album, the controversial track Animal, Fuck Like a Beast, was deleted from the album. The Parents Music Resource Center, or PMRC, ever heard of that? Yeah. Had labeled the song as one of its filthy 15 songs that the group determined to be morally objectionable. Capitol Records subsequently bowed to pressure and pulled the song off the album before its release. The band released it as a single in the UK in '84 on the indie label Music for Nations, and the single subsequently became a highly sought-after item in North America as an import. The song was reinstated as the album opener with the 1998 reissue, as were 2 other tracks, Show No Mercy and a cover of the Rolling Stones song Paint It Black, which were put at the end of the album's original running order. Now, for this review, I'm just going to go through the 10-song track list because that's the album my friends and I discovered back in '84 and the album I immediately fell in love with and have thought fondly of ever since. And then, after I've talked about those 10 tracks, I will comment on each of these 3 additional tracks that are included on that '98 reissue. But for now, track 1, I Want to Be Somebody.
You say you don't wanna run and hide, a place that no one knows, and everyone you meet, you're gonna show. You're nobody's slave, nobody's chains are holding you. You hold your fist up high and move a Oh, you just got to be
I first heard this album when a friend of mine called me up one day out of the blue in 1984 and said, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" "Nothing much," I responded. "Why?" because he stated, I just got a new cassette by a new band and you're gonna shit when you hear this. I'll be over in a few minutes. Needless to say, he brought this album over on cassette and he was 1000% correct. I was completely blown away. When he popped that tape in my boombox and pushed play and I Want to Be Somebody came blaring out of those speakers, I was just, that sound, that voice, that attitude. Holy crap, what an album opener. Immediately, you knew who these guys were, what they stood for, and how you were going to feel about the rest of the album before you even heard the other 9 tracks. This was simply awesome. Easily 5 stars for me. I simply cannot say enough about this track and how it affected me on that day. The accompanying music video was so popular that VH1 later placed it in their list of the top 100 hard rock songs of all time. I definitely agree with that assessment. And then we get to the fade in of track 2, Love Machine.
Lady, have you known me, the perfect love machine? I'm Virgo, my Leo's rising, Venus made me king. That train of broken hearts, they all belong to me. Magic runs through my fingers, one touch you'll see. L.O.V.E.
Also, according to Wikipedia, Love Machine dates back to Blackie Lawless's pre-W.A.S.P band Circus Circus, who frequently played the song live but never recorded it. Another 5 stars. Holy crap. I think I actually like this one even more than the opener somehow. At least this is the track I'm pretty sure I most look forward to when I get the album out. And it always has been, I think. Those drums and that vocal and the way the song is arranged with the bass holding everything together. Just incredible. I really feel like this is one of the most flawless songs I've ever heard W.A.S.P do. The verses and the choruses, and then that break at the end of the guitar solo just absolutely slay me. Okay, so at this point, I have to mention drummer Tony Richards. The day I first heard this album, Tony Richards was immediately one of my favorite drummers to listen to. I just found his drumming to be really active and tasteful. And I thought that the drums on this album had a fantastic overall sound to them. Oh gosh, what a total shame that we never really got to hear him play again after this. Apparently because of a drug problem, at least according to the articles I've been able to find in recent years, and specifically a Full in Bloom interview here on YouTube that I'll try to find a link to and put in the description below this video. Where he fully admits, yeah, it was me. I was messed up and it was my fault that wasn't in the band after that. He also had some other things to say, but I'll let you find that for yourself. But man, could that dude play? I really wish he could have just cleaned up and continued with this band. I was still playing drums a little in 1984 and had just started taking guitar lessons about 3 or 4 months before this album came out. So the drums on this album kind of had a big impact on me musically and almost convinced me to switch back to drums full time. I didn't, but almost. There weren't a whole bunch of tracks that faded in the way this one did back at that time that I can think of. I've always thought that was a really great choice after the way I Want to Be Somebody ends, to just have this kind of crawl in and rear its ugly head after a few seconds. I also want to bring up these lyrics. I'm not going to go over them line at a time or anything like that, but I just think these are some really cool lyrics for this band. And I absolutely loved the lyrics to this song in '84 and still do today. Okay, track 3, The Flame. This one is written by Blackie, Lawless, Chris Holmes, and Jay Marquez. I think a lot of people seem to list this as a favorite track on the album. It is a great track, I agree, but not one of my absolute favorites. There are 4 of those for me on this album. This just didn't quite make that list. I do love it though. I'm going to give it 4 stars. It just doesn't quite measure up to the 5-star tracks that this album offers, at least in my opinion. But yeah, really cool track. Track 4, B.A.D. Another good solid track, another 4 stars. Basically, the tracks on this album are all really good, but there are a handful that stand out for me in a really big way. And the rest just aren't those. I really enjoy the lyrics and the vocals on this track, and the music's great too. Track 5, School Days.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Man, I love that opening riff. I give this song 4 stars. After what I said about how much I love the drumming Tony Richards did on this album, I also remember sitting down and learning most of these riffs on my guitar as soon as I could possibly figure out how to do that. These guys were fairly limited as guitarists, honestly. Kind of reminds me of Twisted Sister in that way a little bit. But that isn't intended as an insult. I'm sure it sounds like one, but it's not intended to be one. I really like guitarists who play to the song rather than showing off all the time. But yeah, these guys like JJ French and Eddie Ojeda kind of keep it simple. Nothing wrong with that. Based on that though, I've always been kind of struck by the oddity of Chris Holmes talking about his early friendship while they were growing up with one Edward Van Halen. Just seems like Chris would have picked up a little something from Edward's chops and his tone along the way, which I don't really hear at all in his playing on these W.A.S.P albums. But there are certain bands that just don't quite feature the lead guitarist in the way some other bands do. This is one of those. So is Twisted Sister. So is Kiss. It's not me slamming them, it's just the truth. Moving on to side 2, track 6, Hellion. Yep, another of my very favorite songs from this album and this band. 5 stars. Perfect. I love it all. The riff, the drums, the lyric, the vocal, all of it. Great song. Not really sure exactly what else to say about it. I just love it. I don't think it dawned on me that this is one of the best songs on the album until a lot later on. It absolutely is. Track 7, Sleeping in the Fire.
Touching the flames, desires, feeling the pain's denial, and your fingers in the fire. Look in the candlelight, seeing the flame of life, and my spell is so alive. Taste the love, the Lucifer's magic that makes you numb, the passion that knows.
Oh my God, what a freaking song. I absolutely cannot get enough of this track. I have memories of this one immediately making a huge impression on me. I just think it's constructed incredibly well. And Blackie's voice really deserves a lot of attention on this album, but nowhere more than it does here. When he starts singing that opening verse, instant chills. 5 stars. This is one of my favorite ballads on any of these 80s albums by any band, for sure. There's just something really hypnotic about this track for me. It just kind of sends me into a trance whenever it starts. Absolutely fantastic. I remember always being totally fascinated by what exactly the lyrics of this song actually were. Now, I'll be honest, I often hear lyrics slightly wrong the first million times or so. I remember when I was a little kid, my mom would listen to her Kenny Rogers 8-track, and I would ask her, why did he have 400 children if there was only a crop in the field? And she would laugh hysterically. Well, I can also remember thinking when I first heard this song that Blackie was saying, taste the love, to lose the girl's magic, and thinking, well, that's nice of him to think that girl was magic or whatever. But then a little while later, I remember listening again and thinking, wait, what was that? Is he singing a love song about Lucifer? Holy shit. Well, yes, that's apparently exactly what he's saying. At least according to the lyric sheet that's included on the CD of this album. And a ballad about the devil. Wow. I remember realizing that back then and thinking, oh my God, that's pretty heavy. Another thing it took me a while to realize about this song, there's no second verse. Unless you count the second half of the first verse at the very beginning of the song before that first chorus, which I don't count. But anyway, that's pretty cool. I love when songwriters break the rules of songwriting. We'll suck. Go Blackie. Track 8, On Your Knees.
Dancing with danger right until dawn. The sin that you buy and you sell. Mom and Daddy said the life that you led will party your way straight to
stars. I really dig this song. It's not like I'm skipping any of these tracks. I just don't think it stands up to the first two songs on each side of the album, which for me are the obviously spectacular 5-star songs. Still, this one's great. This song is, of course, most famous for being the track in which, at the end, Blackie asks, "What the fuck was that?" I still don't know the answer, and that's cool. I don't need to. Track 9, Tormentor.
I'm a liar and I'm a cheat. I have no morals and I'm a thief. Religion plunder, curse those who enter. I am the killer, I'm tormentor.
Written by Lawless and Chris Holmes. Another great track that just isn't quite the first two tracks from side 1 or side 2, but I really love it, and I give it 4 stars. One thing I feel a need to bring up, even though I really hate to, I've heard people call W.A.S.P a hair metal band occasionally. I really hate that term. No, I despise that term. And if you want to earn my respect, don't use the term hair metal. I don't believe it's really a thing. I just believe the people who say it are fucking lazy thinkers. But anyway, if you are going to use that term, at least around me, you better be talking about Poison. Not W.A.S.P. Because if there is such a thing as hair metal, one of those bands are it, and the other one definitely is not. And if you can't tell the difference, you shouldn't be a part of the conversation. The tracks on this album are nowhere near those kind of tracks. This is actual heavy metal in 1984. Metal with an image. They use hairspray. They don't sound like hairspray in the slightest. Track 10, The Torture Never Stops. Four stars. Cool track, cool riffs, cool vocal, cool album closer. Okay, so that's 4 5-star songs and 6 4-star songs, which equals a total score of 4.4 out of 5 for the album rating. Now, let's get to those extra tracks. Animal. Four stars. I mean, I like it. It's cool, but I've never really loved it. Not like I do I Want to Be Somebody, Love Machine, Hellion, Sleeping in the Fire. I know a lot of fans feel like Animal is the best, or at least every bit as good as those other songs. I just don't get that. But hey, cool, whatever. I do remember that we were all just blown away by the fact that it had the F word in the chorus and the title. That didn't happen a lot in 1983. And we were like moths to that flame, I suppose. Something I think I've talked about before on here is that I'm not crazy about bonus tracks being inserted directly back into running orders of albums when they're reissued. Now, don't get me wrong, I always want to be able to hear the bonus tracks. I want to have access to those songs that even though they didn't make the albums, but I want them somewhere else, like Motley Crue did with Supersonic and Demonic Relics or whatever. Collect those tracks over a handful of albums and then give them all to me at once on some sort of separate CD or whatever. The simple truth for me about bonus tracks that didn't make albums is exactly that. They didn't make the final cut on the album because in almost every single case I can think of, they simply weren't good enough to be on that album. And for whatever reason, I see an album as a package that should not be messed with. W.A.S.P. 84 debut is what I fell in love with. 10 songs. Perfect. It's exactly how I want to remember that era of the band and that year in metal. Just leave it alone, for God's sake. Stop messing with my childhood, damn it. And I feel completely justified in saying that about this particular album, for sure. The extra 3 tracks that got lumped in with those official 10 tracks don't freaking belong with them. But if you just must include the extra tracks on the reissues, for God's sake, put them at the end of the CD, not at the beginning or in between the original album sequence. And especially don't put Animal in at track 1 in front of I Want to Be Somebody, which to me is like one of the ultimate album openers I've ever heard. There's absolutely no universe I can think of in which that song is a better album opener than I Want to Be Somebody. And if that's how Blackie originally intended the album to open, then I have to say, honestly, Blackie may not be nearly as smart and talented as I thought he was. If you don't agree with that, that's fine. You have that right. We can feel different about things. I have that right too. Okay, so Show No Mercy is the next bonus track. And that's another 4 stars, I guess. It's okay. It's hardly memorable enough to replace what actually made the album in 1984, though. In fact, I have to say, it's simply remarkable to me just how often bands, record labels, and producers get these initial album track lists 100% correct. Seriously. Not always, but most of the time. And all you people, by the way, who talk about Sword and Stone like it's one of the all-time great Kiss songs and absolutely should have been on Crazy Nights, I can't even believe you folks. What exactly is so freaking appealing to you guys about that stupid song? I mean, obviously, I would have loved it if Kiss had replaced nearly all the songs on Crazy Nights, but with that? No, absolutely not. Not for me, anyway. These people get this stuff right somehow, almost every time. Not quite, but almost. And the 8 or 10 or 12 songs that make an album are usually the correct choices, if you ask me. Like they were in this case, no matter what the reasons are that people give in interviews for not including these songs originally. Okay. And last but not least, the cover of the Rolling Stones' Paint It Black.
I see the red door and I want to paint it black. No colors anymore.
it's pretty okay. I'll go ahead and offer up 4 stars again. And that's basically my way of saying I find it interesting to hear how they interpreted a Rolling Stones song, one of my favorite Rolling Stones songs. But I don't want it to take the place of anything else that's on this album. No way. It's nothing spectacular. It's pretty cool. That's all I've really got for you about that. Sorry. So the bottom line is I love this album. Have since the very first time I heard it. To me, it's just another in a long, long, long list of those fantastic 1984 hard rock and metal albums. And I'm really thrilled to finally have it in my vinyl collection. I'm also thrilled when I check the channel on YouTube and I see that we're up to a whopping 680 subscribers. Thank you for that. Does anyone else remember when I was on here like a couple of months ago saying how I hoped we would eventually get to the magic number of 500 subscribers? Wow, look at us go. That's awesome. All right. Be sure to let me know what you guys think of the W.A.S.P debut album. I'd love to read all about your opinions in the comments beneath this video. Thanks a lot for sticking around, you guys. Hope you have a great day. Out.